Hey guys, I'm Bev,
And I'm Ray.
and we are The
The
Prices.
Prices.
Welcome to our podcast with Lovey Sabor, because we all need a little loving, especially from Jesus,
We all need a little bit of sabor.
as you get the 411 from our life so that you don't have to go through it too.
Amen to that, sister. Boom.
If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw us.
How awkward and cringe and weird that little fist pump was.
Yeah, it was. Anyways, if you see us on our phones more this episode, we planned a little more.
Have an outline, guys. We're doing better now, dude.
Yeah, we sat down this week and wrote some stuff down. So we just wanted to go through it. But
I'm going to turn my brightness down. That way you can't see me.
This week is Valentine's Day. Or it was Valentine's Day yesterday.
Yep.
Once this podcast is out.
Yep. I hope you guys took your significant other to do something romantic or...
And if you didn't, you have plans to do it one of these days.
Yeah, you do it tomorrow. Come on.
Or whatever day. Whenever you do date night.
Yep. Fun fact, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day.
I was just going to say that.
Yep.
Do you want to tell them why we don't celebrate Valentine's Day?
Well, first of all, we're not romantic people.
We really aren't.
It's just not our thing. It just seems like a really, cheesy thing for us.
Yeah, it's too cringe.
Yeah, and plus, I don't know about you guys, but I know the guys know this. Flowers are expensive on Valentine's Day.
So expensive for no reason. And so we have a rule in our house from me that Ray is not allowed to get me flowers on dates where you're supposed to give flowers.
Yep. So Valentine's Day is one of them.
Yes. Like birthdays, I feel like you can, but what would you like our anniversary? You're supposed to get flowers. He's not allowed to get flowers. He needs to plan these out more.
Doesn't that make it harder on us? Yeah, it does. Guys, you understand me.
And that's kind of the point, because I want him to actually think about when he's getting me flowers.
Yeah. So if you're a dude and you just spent $150 to $300 on flowers for your significant other, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever you have, your boo thing, good for you, dude.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if your wife and your girlfriend, whatever, boo thing likes that, then you do what she likes.
Yeah.
But in our house, it's not allowed.
You listen to her, all right?
Yes.
You make her happy.
Okay, but if she says she doesn't want them, she still wants them. That's a number one rule.
But isn't that what Beverly just said? That
No,
not
not on Valentine's Day. There's a rule. I always say that. I refuse to accept them.
Wait, so do you want flowers?
No, I don't want them. No,
that means, hey, I should get her flowers?
No, not at all. That does not mean you're giving me flowers on Valentine's Day. I'm saying in general. I feel like a lot of girls go, I don't want any, but they really do. Yep. No, I want flowers, but not on Valentine's Day.
Okay, so the reason why...
Yeah, well, I guess go back to the question why we don't
celebrate Valentine's Day is because it's my mother's birthday.
And my mother's birthday.
Yep.
How crazy is that? That, both the most important women in our lives, their birthday is on...
the exact same day.
February 14th.
Not same year.
No.
But same day.
Yes, which is wild. But... So it's always been my mom's birthday.
Same.
So it's just weird celebrating it. And we don't like celebrating cringy stuff. Mostly.
That too. And honestly, Valentine's Day has always just felt like the day that we get to honor our mothers.
Right.
And obviously being Hispanic, you know how much that means to you.
Yeah, seriously.
You honor your mom on her birthday and her Mother's Day. And any other holiday you can think of. Yeah. But for sure, definitely ours falls on February 14th. And it's the day of love.
Yeah. So I go to the cemetery on Valentine's Days. And I put flowers for my mom. And that's kind of what... And I do something that I know she would like me to do that day. So, I'm meeting this... By the time this is out, I've already met with my friends, but I planned a lunch with my best friends in Columbus, and it's gonna be cute and fun, and that's something that I know my mom would have loved for me to do. So
yep, but this year's different.
Why is that?
Could you have a plus one?
Noah gets to come with me everywhere. Which is kind of nice because I don't go to the cemetery by myself anymore. And
Yeah.
I usually go by myself. Well, not because I want to, but it just ends up being that way.
Yep. This timing and things just don't work out and they don't fall into place. Anyway, make sure you buy something for your significant other. Show them that you love them.
Yeah, and if you're single, I hope you show yourself some self-love.
Yeah,
And
spoil yourself,
yes.
dude. Come on.
I remember being single and just going all out for myself. This was a day that I made sure to get my nails done, a pedicure. I'd get myself that Starbucks.
Yep.
Just simple things like that make you feel loved for yourself, which goes with the topic of today, continuing last week's episode, which was about self-love.
Yep.
So do you want to kind of talk about what this one will be about?
Yeah, so we kind of just wanted to wrap our heads around showing yourself self-love, and how last week's episode it was about identity.
Yeah.
And in the sense of trying to figure out how to love yourself. Which, side note, if you haven't heard last week's episode,
go watch it now.
Yeah, stop this one and go watch the one from last week.
You don't have to watch it. You can listen to it.
Yeah, we are on YouTube if you want to watch it.
Yeah. Just awkwardly watch us because we're not used to recording yet.
Right. But, or even you can still listen to this one because it's completely different than last week's episode. This week we want to talk about forgiveness.
Yeah, self-love. Still including self-love and how to forgive.
Yeah. Because what do you think when you hear about forgiveness? How does that relate to self-love for you when you think about it?
Healing and peace. I guess those are the two biggest words that come to my mind is knowing that when I forgive someone, or if in this case we would be forgiving myself, or even forgiving God, because you can be mad at God sometimes.
Yeah, big fact.
So, which is okay to get mad at God. He allows that.
Yeah.
So it just being in peace, because once you have connected the dots of wanting to forgive and starting the process of it, there's just a sense of peace that comes from it.
Yeah, which honestly leads us to our so we want to talk about 4 different things of how you understand it that you do have to forgive.
Yeah, so the 4 stages to forgiveness.
Yeah, understanding how to get there, because some of you listening might be oh yeah, I forgave that person already.
But have you really?
Yeah.
Is the real question. You have to ask the second question. Have you actually forgiven?
Yeah, which honestly the first reasoning is it's going to be 4 H's. The first one's hurt.
Which is identifying, experience, and expressing your feelings. Label them as specifically as you can. Think back to what gave rise to these feelings.
Yeah, I think the hardest part of understanding forgiveness is you have this hurt.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part. For everybody, for anybody, you figuring out that you're hurting as a person is kind of a sign of weakness if you think about it, right? For
right.
Most people, when you think about being hurt, you think about, well, something or someone did something to make me feel this way.
Or even yourself. You could have done something to yourself,
right,
or in a situation that you feel responsible for. So identifying that hurt is not easy.
Yeah, I think something we even heard this past weekend at our church from the service was, I can't remember what it was. Oh, yeah. It was when Jesus was walking on water and Peter called out to him and said, "Whoa, what is that? Do you hear that? Do you see that?
Yeah.
Is it a ghost? What the heck is going on?"
Right.
And like the first emotion he had wasn't like, let me openly open my arms and be like, Jesus, I need you. No, it was like, yo, is that a ghost?
Right.
I'm scared, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like honestly, that's what I think about when I think about feeling hurt.
Yeah, that's a good representation.
It's like you get this emotion of like sadness, depression, just anger for most people, like you understanding the fact that you have to understand what that is,
Right.
and like you have to break it down in questions,
Yeah. You
honestly.
really do. I think more so, what is that thing that you don't want to or don't like talking about
Yeah.
is usually the biggest pinpoint of, or it makes you uncomfortable when the subject is brought up, because that's really identifying the hurt in general.
Yeah, it's honestly it's a lot easier to talk about than it is to feel.
Yes.
Like for me as a man, it's a lot harder to understand that forgiveness is a thing that will heal me, in a way of like, as men we kind of push our feelings to the side and we just suppress them even more and more, and we just go, oh, that thing didn't hurt me.
Right.
It
It's
just
easier
made
to
me
push
stronger.
away. It's easier to push away and try to look at it in a positive way instead of like actually seeing the negatives of what it made you feel.
Yeah. Like I don't think it could make you love yourself more, or even you could even get across that road, because if you've been like I think one example is like you viewing the way you look, right? Like you could say a bunch of negative things to yourself in the mirror and be like, well, I look fat. Well, I'm too short. Well, my lip looks a little weird on the right side. You know, like.
Okay, pointing out all the things I say.
That's not what you say.
I always talk about my lip and how I would get a little bit of filler on one side because it's lower than the other.
That's not what I meant at all. But you know, like, there's something that you can nitpick when you're looking in the
Yeah.
mirror, and you go, I wish I could change that. Well, first of all, your words have power.
They really do.
Like everything you say and talk about, that has power. So if you say I'm a failure, you say I'm this, I'm that in a negative way, it's probably gonna happen.
Right.
You know? What's an example of like you going through hurt?
I don't know.
It can be like on a deeper level or on a surface level.
I think all that comes to mind is because we're talking about weight, but it's more so growing up watching my mom struggle with her weight and how much she hurt herself not liking her body from a really, really, really young age. I remember seeing her like struggle and me having to get on top and like and help her button her pants because she needed to fit into those jeans. So I think in a sense right now what I've been, as having Noah and us wanting to have more kids and hopefully having a girl, at least one girl.
Were the rest all girls?
If you don't know, Ray really wants girls, daughters.
Yep.
I do too, but I would be okay with just one girl. But I think because I don't want Noah to see that. So there's a hurt in me.
Yeah.
I think I'm like hurting myself for being the same way and not breaking that chain.
Got it.
Like that cycle of constantly not liking our bodies and criticizing. I've always been the curvier one of my family. Like my cousins are a lot thinner and it was easier. It seemed, I don't know if it was easier, but it seemed like it was easier for them to lose weight. But I also was always proud of myself for being curvier because I was like, I'm not depriving myself.
Yeah.
I'm not just eating a salad type of thing, which
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But I think that I recently identified, which is kind of one of the questions that we have, is like, who did this to you? When did it occur? And where did it happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so who, like, in my mom, she tried her best as like I got older
Yeah.
to not judge me, not, tried to teach me better ways of like taking care of myself, taking care of my skin, like especially when makeup started, like when makeup became a thing in my life, like she's like, make sure you're taking it off. Like she started to realize that her words were really impacted my life
Yeah.
as I got older.
Yeah.
So it's not remembering the bad things that I remember hearing from her. It's more so I want to remember the things that came afterwards where she was like implementing good, like the good things.
Yeah.
Even though I've always struggled with my weight.
Yeah. I think that's a really good example of like physically seeing how you hurt yourself, but your mom kind of hurt you in a way too without even knowing it.
Right.
I think a lot of the times when we think about hurting and forgiveness, we can pinpoint an exact time and date of when you were hurt by somebody else.
Yeah.
Like whether it was like a sexual abuse relationship, a physical abuse relationship, or it was a big fight with your parents or significant other, or whatever that looks like,
Right.
Like, or if you were alone and you started doing drugs or you started drinking a lot more excessively, like you can pinpoint certain areas of like, yeah, I need to forgive this.
Right.
Or I need to forgive myself for this,
Okay, so the second point is hate. If you have been hurt, you hate. It is not wrong to hate. In fact, we are supposed to hate what God hates. Where does that make you feel when you hear that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you said in your second point of like, you feel like because your mom said those things, you started to hate that within yourself.
Right.
And I mean, if it hate, it doesn't really come from God unless it's something that negatively impacts you.
Right.
And so like if you were in some type of relationship or anything like that, like you start to feel that hate towards people.
Yeah.
Like if you come out of an abusive relationship, you're going to hate dudes. You're going to hate men.
Well, and then you're going to hate people who comment about it or talk about it more.
Yeah, or even talk about boys.
Yes.
Talk about falling in love.
Yeah.
Oh, now I hate this idea of love.
Right.
Like we don't want you to get it twisted that because it is okay to hate, it doesn't mean that everything you hate
is good.
Because it's the thing that God wants you to hate.
Like we wrote and said, we're supposed to hate what God hates. And that really is something to like dwell on and like really just think about it. Like write that down.
Yeah.
Because that in itself is really important of like God doesn't hate boys.
Right.
God does not hate love. God hates the boys that treat girls wrong.
Yep.
He does not like that. He doesn't like when men treat another person wrong, whether it's another woman or another man, know? So those are the things that you have to really focus on. It's like, what does God specifically hate?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the person either. It's more so the action.
The action, right? Correct.
Like God doesn't hate that guy that abused you, that thing that you did. God doesn't hate you or that person.
Or in like my example of like body image, right? Like he hates that I talk down on myself.
Yeah.
And that's really that's the pinpoint of it. Like we should not like talking bad about ourselves.
Yeah. I think this one's relatively a lot easier to pick up on and realize that you are in that in that like season of your life of like having to forgive. Because honestly, like a lot of us, we get hurt and we didn't ask for it. We didn't say, pick me, hurt me, and God knows that. God knows that he doesn't forget the things that people did to you. He doesn't forget the things that happened to you. So like God still hears you in the midst of this season of your life that you feel like God isn't around.
Right. What's something that you've identified, like, that you've hated? You're someone that it's really hard to dislike something or someone. Like, it takes you a long time. I'm definitely a more rencoroso. I don't know, rencorosa. How do you say that in Spanish?
Like easily to be resentful.
Yes. It's and that's something that I definitely have to work on all the time.
Yep.
And you are definitely someone that you always have to point that out to me, because I am that way.
Yeah.
So because it's so hard to get to that point, how do you heal from that?
So for me,
or how do you figure out that you got to that point?
So for me, like, it's really hard for me. Maybe it's just because I'm a dude, or maybe it's just because it's who I am.
Yeah, I think it's just who you are.
But it's hard for me to open up about my feelings about how I feel about things, because I suppress legit everything.
Yeah.
Like, I could be having the worst day of my life, and my face says something completely different.
For sure.
And honestly, like, it's one of my greatest abilities as a human person, like, as a human being, like, being able to
just move on.
Yeah, and bring light to the world.
Right.
Everywhere I go.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of it, like, if you know me, you would think I'm a very emotional dude.
He isn't a very emotional dude, but it's a really hard time to get him there.
Like, no, I mean, like, in a sense of, like, you talk to me, you feel like you can share your whole entire life story with me, because you know that I'm not gonna fake it, and then I'll react with emotion.
Got it.
The way you want me to.
Mm-hmm.
But then you ask me a question about myself, and then I don't know how to answer that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so for me, like, growing up, like, forgiveness is a really hard idea, because I was like, yeah, I forgave them. Yeah, I moved on, you know? And I think the one that comes to mind, which in a way, I feel like I'm still trying to figure it out.
Sorry to interrupt this episode, but press pause and send this to a friend, your family member. Make sure to subscribe and follow us on social platforms. Leave a comment and we'll shout you out in the next episode. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, so for me, it's really hard to identify forgiveness in a way where I'm like, yeah, I was definitely hurt by that, you know? Because I feel like I get hurt really easily.
Yes and no.
Like, certain stuff, I get hurt really easily.
Stuff that you would be like,
why are you offended? But then real life stuff, it's like, how are you not hurt by that?
I think it's because you just suppress those.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a blocker. It's a defense mechanism.
For sure.
That I have, that I, honestly, like, brings me to this idea and this thought of, like, I grew up a lot of my life, like, my family's not very emotionless or emotional.
Yeah, they're emotionless.
Yeah, like, they don't, like, coming to know her family shares everything. Like, they have a group chat where they, support each other. They honor each other. They talk about their feelings. They talk about their life.
We check in on each other when there's a tornado.
Yeah, like, stupid stuff.
My dad always posting when he's at the airport.
Yeah, but
Mr.
like,
Travel Man.
I'm, like, super thankful that I came into that, because I wouldn't have known anything else other than growing up. Like, my parents are amazing. My sister's amazing. My brother's amazing.
Yeah.
But on a surface level, that's about it. Like, we don't really share our deepest emotions, which I think we have a lot more lately.
Yeah, it definitely has. But I think it's been way more in person, an individual.
Yeah.
It would never happen. Well, I'm never. Maybe I shouldn't say never. I pray that it does happen, like
Yeah.
more, and like it becomes a frequent thing.
Yeah.
I think it'll. Honestly, I think it will get there as the kids are getting older.
Yeah, I think I also have to push the boundaries of it, and it feels like I have to be the pioneer of it and like take it upon myself to want to share more than I need to.
I think just even like, what was the one thing that I made you do? It was when we first met. They didn't say "I love you" to each other.
We just hung up the phone and we didn't even say "I love you" to each other.
Or his dad never your dad never really hugged you.
Yeah, my dad didn't hug me until 21 years of my life.
Yes, and it was because I told him, I was like, "Why don't you hug your dad?"
Yeah.
And he started, and like you said, you've been one to pioneer it because you've been.
Yep.
You've initiated it, and
yeah, my brother says "I love you" to me.
Yeah.
He didn't before. I didn't either. My sister opens up a lot about her life, and I share about my life. And honestly, like, that's the part that I didn't realize was the part that I had to learn how to forgive my parents and my family, even though I didn't realize I was hurt.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a sense of like they did this knowing they were hurting me.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of like childhood and like parent stuff is stuff that they don't realize that they are hurting us.
Yeah, I think it's also like in the Hispanic culture, and maybe it's even like maybe it's their generation too.
Yeah, that could be
like
that too.
They came back and they were like, I can't show mercy, because a lot of the time when you think about forgiveness, you think about being weak.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm gonna be a weak person now because I'm forgiving the other person, or I'm forgiving myself. I'm such a weak person, you know?
Right.
But I think that's not true. Like, you're a stronger person because you did forgive.
And because you identify it too.
Yeah. Like, you had to start the process of, this hurt me.
Yeah.
And
you actually have to feel the feels.
Yeah. And for like a long part of my life, like I went through college, like, honestly, I didn't realize that I had been hurt until I left home.
Yeah.
And I got to college, and I started to look at other kids, and I started to compare myself. And honestly, like, being hurt leads to comparison.
Oh, for sure.
Leads to depression.
Yeah.
Like, if you sit in it for too long, you're going to become depressed because you're going to be jealous. You're going to start comparing. You're going to start to have hate.
Yeah. Which is all things that God does not want in your life. God does not want you to be resentful, hate, and get into a state of depression and anxiety, because those are not from God.
Yeah. Like, I started to look around at kids that were in my school and my classes, and I was like, well, they're doing better because their parents went through college. They did this. They did that. Why couldn't my parents do that? You know?
Yeah.
Like, I started to feel this hatred towards my parents, even though they never did anything wrong.
Right.
You know? And it was like this weird feeling of like trying to navigate and figure out what that looked like.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which would be the next is the hook. Acknowledge the deceptive feeling of control. Refusing to forgive provides a feeling of power, but this feeling is deceptive, as it is really a cover for your own sense of hurt and vulnerability, which is what you were just basically talking about.
Yep. It's you have to choose to refuse to be the victim.
Yeah.
Which in college, I was starting to feel like the victim.
Yeah, I remember us just being frustrated because we felt used. I think one of the biggest things for me was I had to do an extra almost year and a half of schooling because I didn't get the support from, what would you call them? Like the people that help you get your classes?
Oh,
Your advisor.
the advisors.
Yes. So my advisor, she didn't actually help me. And she honestly set me back more than pushed me forward.
Yeah.
And that was really hurtful for me when I did find that out. And I found out on my own because I ended up finding a piece of like paper where it like documented the classes that I needed to like have to graduate, right? And I was like, this doesn't happen to other people. Yeah. You know, this doesn't happen to the other students that their parents went to school. Because their parents are on top of it, you know, like, and making sure that they're taking the right amount of credits and the classes to be on track. And it wasn't, and I shouldn't have compared myself because I don't know if they all were in that.
Yeah.
And it was me, maybe just in my naive world, which has made me such a stickler. But I think it's just like identifying now that it made me become a person who reads everything now.
Yeah. I think that the hardest part is like to this point of like hook, like you start to feel like you're losing the sense of power, like you said, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, ultimately, I think you're starting to lose this idea of trust.
Right.
Like you start to lose trust in yourself, in others.
Yeah.
And you start to feel more than hatred. Like it's a whole nother level of like you hating the world.
Yeah.
Like you can even get to the point of hating God.
Yeah.
And like you start to go, well, God isn't real because if God was real, I wouldn't be going through these things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think of the perfect example of like in the Bible, like it talks a lot about how like you should cast all your sins and your feelings and everything towards God, right?
Yeah.
Like God should be the ultimate person that you should give that up to. And like even when Jesus, you know, God sent Jesus on this world to die for our sin, like Jesus endured the most pain out of anybody.
Right.
Like can you imagine waking up every single day and being criticized for every single thing you do?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like think about the feelings that you have towards forgiveness and like the hurt you have.
Right.
Times a million.
Yeah. Which sometimes it feels like that, but it really isn't.
Yeah. And I even think about like when Jesus was about to die on the cross, he didn't look around and didn't start pointing fingers at people and go, hey, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. I did this to myself. God, you did this. What did he do?
He said, God, forgive them for they do not know better.
Yeah. Jesus legit said, forgive them.
For they do not know better. That always hits so hard, like hearing that, because no one knows better, you know?
Yeah.
We don't know better.
Right.
So who are we to judge others in that sense too? Like even putting it into perspective of other, like what is going on in your life, you know? Like
yeah.
We cannot judge those people.
Right. And I know you think like you're listening to this, right? And you're going, you don't understand the relationship I was in. That guy legit beat me.
Right.
Like I legit went through hell with this person. I get it. Or I should say I don't get it. Like I don't know those feelings of what it felt like, what it looked like, how you felt scared every single day of your life, like waking up and not knowing if you were going to be alive that day, you know?
Right.
Like it sounds really extreme, but some people are going through that.
Yeah.
And like even the idea of forgetting, like understanding to forgive God, right? Like you could probably be living paycheck to paycheck, hating your life, hating the situation you're in, and you keep telling yourself this is all God's problem. This is all God's fault.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you it's easy to forgive. It's easy to find out what it is, you know? Like I can't tell you that there is a solution for what you're feeling. But like I said before, like God hears your prayer.
Yeah.
God knows your circumstance. And he doesn't forget that.
Yeah. Which we can go into like the last point, which is to heal, which is forgiveness is both an event and a process. Giving forgiveness to an offender is an event. Finding relief from your own pain is a process. It takes time. You must keep opening your heart to God.
Yeah. I think it's like I said, it's easy for us to just talk about it and be like, oh, you have to forgive. Oh, you have to do this. And it's I think the reason why they say it's an event, giving forgiveness to an offender is an event, because you remember it.
Yeah.
And God wants you to know that you remember it, because it only makes you stronger, you know?
Yeah. It's not to hurt you more.
Yeah.
It's to put in perspective of you got through it.
Yeah.
And you are better off now.
Yep.
Because you did leave.
Yeah.
Or you stopped judging yourself and talking bad about yourself, or
Right.
you learned to identify the fact that your parents did their best and they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Just simple things like that it makes it truly is an event, because it solidifies everything, I feel like.
Yeah. I think you won't be able to move on with your life if you don't learn how to forgive someone else.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean like, let's say you have an abuser, right? Let's say you were beaten by your ex-boyfriend or ex whatever, you know? We're not saying like go to their house, knock on their door,
And say, I forgive you.
yeah. That's not at all what we're saying. Like,
No.
we don't want you to put yourself in danger and like,
Yeah.
God knows what else, you know?
Right.
Like, what we're trying to say is, you are understanding that you're letting go of that.
Yes.
Because that's not you.
Yeah.
Like, you are not a victim of physical abuse, sexual abuse, addiction,
Right.
alcoholism, or even in my own scenario of like, I am not a victim of not knowing how to share my feelings.
Yeah.
And not knowing that could do so much damage for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
If I don't learn how to heal from that.
Right.
Because if I didn't learn that, of like, wow, I really didn't realize how much that hurt me in a big way. God knows what else I would do, you know? Like, not that I've ever been suicidal or anything like that, but it could have driven me to do something stupid.
Right.
That I would regret for the rest of my life.
Right.
You know?
I guess, how did you find relief or like healing in, I guess, your, like what you shared about your family?
I think I would say it's a lot easier now that we have Noah,
Mm-hmm.
because I look at the life that we're creating in front of our own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and I go, I don't want that for my kid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want him to feel like he is going through the worst day of his life, and he can't tell me.
us. Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Like, I look at people too, and I don't want people to know or to feel like they can't rely on us.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to be open.
Yeah.
I want you to be honest. Like, if you're listening to this and you're going through something and you have not told anybody about, Like, hey, Beverly, I was raped when I was 16 years old and I've never told anybody.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be in an open door.
And we want to partner with you in prayer and
Yeah.
walk through this with life, because honestly, we need to do this together. We need to. That I think the last point would be, don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Like, truly do not do it alone. And when you get to this point of like going through all these steps, like, share with someone. Share like the process, even if it's from like for the first point of like, hey, can you just hear me out? And I think that I need to forgive and I need to go through this healing process. You know, tell someone. Don't just dwell on it on your own.
Yeah. I think it's also if you're not open to the idea of telling somebody, go see a therapist. Like, therapists are great. They help you open up to what you need to be open to.
Right.
I think it's a lot of that is the healing process, is you're opening up to what things hurt you and what that looks like, you know? And honestly, like, going through the 4 stages of forgiveness, like hurt, hate, hook, and heal. The 4th one is the hardest.
Yeah.
Because it takes time. Like, I'm still... This happened to me when I was... What? How long have we been together?
Almost 7 years.
Yeah, so I learned this 7 years ago. This process of me knowing that I was hurt from everything.
Yeah.
7 years later, I'm still healing.
Working.
Still healing from it.
Still working on it.
Yeah.
I think you heal little by little.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes in weird waves of you don't start to realize how much it hurts you until it happens. And I say that because, like, so this is sound really stupid. I promise this is at the end of it. Just bear with me. Do you remember the time that I think we were getting coffee. We were in the car. And at the time, I would always call everybody at church Dad.
Yes.
There was a father figure around, and I would just be like, hey, Dad. And I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought deeply, internally, like, I thought I would just call everybody Dad because it was a joke, you know?
Yeah. It just started out of nowhere.
Yeah, it just started out of nowhere. Like, it was just men that I looked up to that I was like, wow, they're really godly men. I would love to be somewhat the percentage of who they are.
Yeah.
You know? And I thought it was a joke. I called everybody Dad. And then one day, Beverly looks at me. This is the most randomest thing ever. We're in the drive-thru to get a Scooter's coffee.
Okay.
And
shout out Scooters.
It's okay. Not that great coffee. I'm just kidding.
No, Scooters, he did not say that. If you want to sponsor us, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, it's actually really good coffee. We love it so much.
More so the blended.
Yeah.
Lately, we've liked blended. But anyways, keep going with your story. Sidetracked.
Anyway, she looked at me and she goes, do you remember what you said?
No, I don't.
You said, you know, maybe the reason you call everybody Dad is because you deeply want them to be your fatherly figure in your life. And I was like...
That's good. That's fire.
I was like, oh my gosh. Did you just say that? And my dad was a great dad, you know? But
Is a great dad.
Is a great dad. He's still a great dad.
He's still here.
But it was this idea of feelings, right? Like I mentioned before, like we said it a couple of minutes ago, my dad didn't hug me until I was 21.
Yeah.
Like that, 21 years of your life going without a hug.
Well, was it really, like, it wasn't like occasional?
No.
Interesting.
Like even till this day, you see my dad and he hugs me awkwardly.
Yeah, he hugs me awkwardly too.
But I also at the time I blamed him for all of it. But then I looked at his life and I said, he grew up without a dad.
Yeah.
how do I expect him to know how to be one if he didn't have an example of it?
Yeah, that's good.
You know? And I have an example of him on how to be a dad. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it because of him.
Yes, you are.
Like,
You're
thanks
doing
to
a
him.
pretty great job. I mean, you've taken things that he did, and things that you wish he would have done,
Mm-hmm.
and you're implementing them in Noah, which is the beauty of it.
Yeah.
But anyways, this is the end of it, and in the 4 points were, it was hurt, hate, hook, heal, and lastly, don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone.
Yeah. So, we do want to shout out the comment from last episode, which was from my best friend Daisy Correas. She said, "Love this. Can't wait to follow you on this journey." Thank you, bestie girl, for commenting. So, and like we mentioned, make sure to like, comment, and share this with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And we will shout someone out next episode. We'll see you guys then.
Peace
Peace out.